Conversations about President Trump's health are stirring up once again following an interview with the Wall Street Journal that's been getting a lot of traction. The report raises concerns about possible signs of aging from Trump as he approaches his 80th birthday.
And it says the president doesn't always follow the advice of his doctors. The article reads in part, quote, President Trump is taking more aspirin than his doctors recommend. He briefly tried wearing compression socks for his swelling ankles, but stopped because he didn't like them. And he regrets undergoing advanced imaging because it generated scrutiny of his health. It continues, quote, Trump gets little sleep and has recently struggled to keep his eyes open during several televised events in the West Wing. Aides, donors, and friends say they have often have to speak loudly in meetings with the president because he strains to hear. Aside from golf, Trump doesn't get regular exercise, and he is known to consume a diet of heavy on salty and fatty foods, such as hamburgers and French fries.
The article also says that Trump has described some of his recent medical care inaccurately. Trump claimed he underwent an MRI in October, but Trump and his doctor told the Wall Street Journal that he actually underwent a CT scan. The process for the two procedures is similar, but the CT scan is typically much faster. Trump told the Journal that in hindsight, he wishes he hadn't gotten the scan because he feels it gave people reason to raise concerns about his health.
But those concerns don't seem to be slowing down, as the report has generated a lot of online reactions. Liberal influencer Harry Sassoon writes, quote, MAGA talked about Biden's health for 4 years. But after this bombshell Wall Street Journal article came out about Trump's health, which revealed he takes 4 times the daily recommended dose of aspirin and still eats like blank, they're silent. Wonder why? And journalist Aaron Rupar says, quote, despite all the obvious lying, if this piece is meant to dispel concerns about Trump's health, it actually does the opposite. This is not a guy who's taking care of himself at 79 years old.
Despite the concerns, Trump and his doctors still assert that the president is in excellent health. Trump turns 80 in June and will surpass Joe Biden as the oldest president in American history by the end of his second term.
So, you know what, for President Trump, I don't think you get an opportunity to make age in regards to Biden a central point of your campaign and of bashing him, and then be like almost annoyed when people are asking you, the oldest president to ever be sworn in, at these questions. I think these are real questions. And it's not a matter of whether he had an MRI or CT scan or what's going on. It's a matter of the transparency and the fact that he and Caroline Levitt have like different answers when people are asking, or ignore the fact that he is falling asleep in meetings and saying, oh, I just having a long blink. Like, people are watching you like kind of, you know, we're watching the video. And it's also really something that we've known since his first term, when he had McDonald's in the Oval Office, is that he doesn't eat that well. And naturally, as somebody who has elderly people in their family, and anybody who can relate to this, is like, you don't want your grandpa, who's almost 80, eating McDonald's and French fries every day. You know that that is not good accommodation for somebody, especially someone who doesn't exercise or have a regimen that seems like it makes sense to take the best care of yourself. And so with all these things coming out, I think naturally it's normal for the press and anyone else concerned about 3 more years of a presidency to say, hey, what's going on? Not to mention the bruise on the hand and the leg swelling, all the different things that have come up that just kind of get swept to the side like, oh, you guys are being dramatic.
Well, I think the difference is that it really wasn't about Biden's age so much as it was a very evident cognitive decline that we saw happen from both the campaign and then throughout his presidency, that got to the point that even Democrats were acknowledging that Biden was not well, that he was forgetting things very easily during debate prep. He was often confused and didn't really understand what they were doing. And so I think there is actually a significant difference between recognizing someone as old and overweight versus seeing actually a cognitive decline that is very evident in the way that the president spoke, in the way that his advisors were handling a lot of meetings, and his wife was sitting in for him on cabinet meetings, despite her being the first lady and not the president. I think it's pretty evident that Trump doesn't obviously take great care of himself with eating the McDonald's. I do think people discount how much exercise golf is actually, but that's a separate issue. But yeah, I don't think those two things are comparable at all.
Well, I think with the fitness to lead, specifically from Trump, he has criticized Joe Biden being like Sleepy Joe, things that are dealing with age, talked about his age definitely directly over the few years. And so even outside of age, some of these things like taking aspirin to thin your blood even more because you don't want it to be too thick, because you don't want to have issues down the line, telling people that it's an MRI when it's a CT scan and people want to know what's going on. Like, there's no clarity around how healthy you are. These things could possibly all be nothing, but in the event that they are something much deeper than we're being told, that means people need to prepare for President J.D. Vance. And I think that's something that the country should be made aware of. And I think that's a legitimate concern, to not actually just say, wow, he's not exactly like Biden, because I agree. Biden and the entire book that came out around his health and cognitive decline, I think we should put the issue to bed because he's no longer president. But that doesn't take away the fact that I think it was wrong that Jill Biden took so much power in that situation and decided basically what the fate of the Democratic Party was going to be, because she so vehemently wanted to protect her husband. But still, at the same time, I think any president moving forward and the nation as a whole can be concerned about the health of their president and say, what's going on? Is there going to be transparency here, especially for an administration that was so critical around transparency, and even brings up the fact that they think, a lot of people in the administration, that Biden had cancer or knew about this diagnosis prior to disclosing it. I mean, these are all specific health-related things, which you think would make the administration want to be more open about exactly what's going on. And then all the conversation could go away. It wouldn't be back and forth. We would just know the answer.
I mean, to be fair, though, it's not like Joe Biden ever sat down with the Wall Street Journal and discussed aspects of his health, right? And so we already have more transparency just from this interview than we did throughout the entire 4 years of the Biden administration, where there was an active cover-up involved, where his doctor was not releasing much information about the president's health, if any at all, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. And then we also learned that Dr. O'Connor never recommended that Biden get a CT scan or an MRI or a cognitive exam, even though the recommended guidance from every independent doctor who's looked at this said that he should have had that done, especially at his age and with some of the concerning things that he saw. So just comparing, Trump openly answering questions about his health and, yes, downplaying aspects of his age, as 80-year-olds are wont to do, right? Compared to whatever we saw over the 4 years of Biden, where we were constantly insisted upon that Biden was outrunning his younger staffers, that nobody could keep up with him. Like, it was ridiculous.
I think Biden shouldn't be the standard, though. I guess that's what I'm arguing. Is that
I agree, but I think it's the problem of the hypocrisy of people who were either actively involved in the cover-up or dismissed concerns about Biden's health to now be like, well, Trump's going to die in office. It's like, well, come on, you guys don't really have any credibility here, right?
Yeah, and I'll say that I was not one of those people.
I know.
Right? So that's why it's hard for me to say that this, using him as a standard. But I also understand there were a lot of people that I think had almost pie in their face when they look at the situation and the book that came out over the last year and really got to understand what was happening, saw his interview on The View and how Joe Biden basically had to speak for him in that interview. And I think there's probably a lot of empathy there for anybody who's dealt with people dealing with a lot of health issue, getting older, having older people in your family, and then also dealing with cancer now. You kind of just want to say, okay, just let him enjoy this part of his life. But I understand there's critical thoughts around it. But the idea is that it doesn't happen again. The idea is that an administration that was so critical doesn't happen again, and that we have younger presidents moving forward. Like,
anybody who's 80 years old is going to have health issues, and that's always a concern when you're talking about the presidency. And I don't think it's shocking that Trump is not like the perfect specimen of health either.
Right. So Affordable Care Act subsidies have expired, launching millions of Americans into 2026 with steep insurance hikes. We're going to talk about that next. Don't go anywhere.